Sirens shattered the Sunday silence on Chadbourne Avenue, turning a Hollywood legend's home into a horrific crime scene. Inside, Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were found brutally murdered, and the primary suspect was their own son, Nick. This tragedy didn't just silence the man who made the world laugh, it tore a family apart and left a $200 million empire in limbo. From meathead millions to a heartbreaking end, this is the story of a fortune that ended in tears. Rob Reiner, the man who made the world laugh as meathead on All in the Family and made us cry with movies like The Princess Bride, was dead. Beside him lay his wife of 36 years, Michelle Singer Reiner. They had not died peacefully in their sleep. They had been attacked. The scene was so terrible that the first people to see it called it horrific. The person who found them was their own daughter, Romy Reiner. She lived right next door. A massage therapist had come to the house for an appointment but could not get in. She called Romy for help. Romy walked into her parents' house expecting to find them resting. Instead, she found a nightmare. At first, she only saw her father. She ran to call for help, not realizing her mother was also in the room, gone just like him. When the police arrived, they found something shocking. The killer was not a stranger. The main suspect was Rob and Michelle's own son, Nick Reiner. He was not at the house when the police got there. He had run away. Hours later, police found him at a gas station near the University of Southern California buying a drink. He was arrested and charged with murdering the two people who had given him everything. Rob Reiner was born into Hollywood royalty, but he worked hard to build his own mountain of money. His father, Carl Reiner, was a comedy legend who created the Dick Van Dyke Show. But Rob did not just want to be Carl's son. He wanted to be his own man. By the time he died, he was worth $200 million. This money came from acting, directing, and being a very smart businessman. Rob first struck gold as an actor. In the 1970s, he played Michael Meathead Stivic on the TV show All in the Family. It was the biggest show in the country. He played the son-in-law of Archie Bunker. He won 2 Emmy Awards for this role. In the TV world, actors get paid residuals. This means every time the show plays on TV, the actors get a check. All in the Family has been playing on TV for over 50 years. It never stops. This gave Rob a steady stream of money that lasted his whole life. It was like a faucet that never turned off. Even when he was not working, the meathead money kept coming in. But Rob did not stop at acting. He wanted to be the boss. He started directing movies in the 1980s. He went on a winning streak that almost no other director has ever matched. He made hit after hit. He directed This Is Spinal Tap, which is a classic comedy people still quote today. He made Stand By Me, which was a huge hit that cost only $8 million to make. He gave us The Princess Bride, which is a fairy tale that makes money from toys and books. He directed When Harry Met Sally, which is one of the most famous romantic comedies ever. He made Misery, which was a scary movie that won an Oscar for Kathy Bates. And he directed A Few Good Men, which was a blockbuster that made over $240 million. For a movie like A Few Good Men, Rob was paid millions of dollars just to direct it. But the real money comes when you own the company that makes the movies. And that is exactly what Rob did. The biggest chunk of Rob Reiner's fortune did not come from a paycheck. It came from a smart business deal. In 1987, Rob helped start a production company called Castle Rock Entertainment. He named it after a town in Stephen King books because his movie Stand By Me was based on a King story. Castle Rock became a powerhouse. They made great movies like The Shawshank Redemption, but their biggest success was not a movie. It was a TV show about nothing. Castle Rock produced the show Seinfeld. At first, the show was not very popular. It almost got canceled. But Rob and his partners kept it going. It eventually became the most profitable sitcom in history. Because Rob was one of the bosses at Castle Rock, he owned a piece of the show. Seinfeld has made billions of dollars. Some reports say the show generated $1.5 billion in revenue for Castle Rock. Every time you watch a rerun of Seinfeld or see it on Netflix, money flows back to the people who made it. In 1993, Rob and his partners sold Castle Rock to huge media tycoon Ted Turner. They sold the company for about $160 million. This sale made Rob incredibly rich overnight, but he kept earning money from the projects he helped create. This deal is the main reason his bank account was so big when he died. It was Seinfeld money. With all that money, Rob Reiner bought some of the most beautiful homes in California. He did not just buy houses, he bought history. His real estate portfolio was worth tens of millions of dollars. The house where Rob and Michelle were killed was a Hollywood treasure. It is located in Brentwood Park, which is a very fancy neighborhood. Rob bought the house in 1991. He bought it from another TV legend named Norman Lear. Norman Lear was the man who created All in the Family. Before Norman Lear lived there, the house belonged to the famous actor Henry Fonda. It was built in 1936 and looks like a classic country estate. It has a main house that is nearly 10,000 square feet. It also has a guest house on the property. Rob paid about $4.75 million for the house in 1991. That was a lot of money back then. But today that house is worth between $10 million and $13.5 million. The value of the land in Brentwood has gone up and up. This house was the family's main home. It was where they raised their kids and where they hosted parties. Sadly, it is also where their story ended. Rob also owned a stunning home on the beach in Malibu. This house is in a gated community called the Malibu Colony. This is where movie stars and billionaires live. It is one of the most exclusive places in the world. Rob bought this house in the 1990s. Today it is worth between $15 million and $20 million. Oceanfront houses in Malibu are like gold mines. When the family was not using it, they could rent it out. In the summer, people pay $100,000 to $150,000 a month just to live there. This house alone made enough money to support a whole family. Rob was very good at buying low and selling high. In 1988, he bought a house in Beverly Hills for about $777,000. A few years later, he sold it for almost $2 million. He knew how to pick the right spots. His real estate was a big part of his $200 million fortune. Money can buy big houses and fancy cars, but it cannot fix everything. Rob Reiner had 4 children. His oldest daughter, Tracy, was adopted. Then he had 3 children with his wife, Michelle, named Jake, and Nick and Romy. Jake became a news reporter and actor. Romy became a filmmaker. Tracy was an actress. But the middle son, Nick, struggled. His life became a dark cloud over the family's sunny success. Nick Reiner was 32 years old when he was arrested. But his problems started when he was just a teenager. He battled a serious drug addiction. He was addicted to hard drugs like meth and heroin. He went to rehab 17 times. At times, Nick lived on the streets. He was homeless in states like Maine and New Jersey and Texas. He slept in parks and refused to come home. Rob and Michelle tried everything to help him. They paid for doctors and rehab centers and therapy. But Nick's demons were strong. Rob Reiner was a storyteller, so he tried to fix his relationship with his son by making a movie. In 2015, they made a film together called Being Charlie. The movie was based on Nick's life. It was about a son who is addicted to drugs and a father who is running for office. Nick co-wrote the script and Rob directed it. They went on TV shows to talk about the movie. They said it helped them understand each other. Rob said they did not set out for it to be therapeutic, but it turned out to be that way. But looking back now, the interviews seem sad. In one interview, Nick looked uncomfortable and quiet while his dad did all the talking. People watching it felt like there was still a lot of pain between them. Rob admitted that during the writing process they were screaming at each other. He said it was painful to relive those dark moments. The movie ended with hope, but real life did not. It was not just drugs. Later it was revealed that Nick had a serious mental illness. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. This is a brain disease that can make people hear voices or believe things that are not true. Nick was taking medication for this illness, but right before the murders his medication was changed. Changing medicine for schizophrenia can be very dangerous. It can make a person unstable. Because Nick was struggling, his parents did not want him living on the streets anymore. They moved him into the guest house on their property in Brentwood. They wanted to keep a watchful eye on him. They thought he would be safer closer to home. But Romy, his sister, was scared. Reports say she lived in fear of Nick and did not like him living so close. She had seen his outburst before, and she was worried. The day before the murders on Saturday, December 13th, the Reiner family went to a Christmas party. It was hosted by the famous comedian Conan O'Brien. It should have been a fun night, but things went wrong. Witnesses at the party said Nick was acting very strange. He was asking people if they were famous. He was wearing casual clothes like a hoodie while everyone else was dressed up in fancy holiday outfits. He stood out and he seemed agitated. Then Nick got into a weird argument with actor Bill Hader. Nick interrupted Bill Hader while he was talking to someone else. When Bill Hader politely told him it was a private conversation, Nick just stood there and stared at him. He would not move. Then he stormed off angrily. This caused a huge scene. Rob and Michelle got into a loud argument with Nick at the party. They were so upset that they left the party early. That was the last time anyone saw them alive in public. They went back to the house on Chadbourne Avenue, taking their troubled son with them. The next day was Sunday. It was quiet outside, but inside the house something terrible happened. Police believe that sometime that day, Nick attacked his parents in their bedroom. He used a knife. The attack was violent and fast. The death certificates say Rob died at 3:45 p.m. and Michelle died at 3:46 p.m. They died just 1 minute apart. After the attack, Nick left the house. He went to a gas station and bought a drink, acting like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, his sister Romy came to the house and found the bodies. Her life was changed forever in that moment. When police caught Nick later that night, he was wearing an anti-suicide smock in jail. This is a special piece of clothing given to prisoners who might try to hurt themselves. It showed that he was in a very bad mental state. Now that Rob and Michelle are gone, everyone is asking what happens to the $200 million. Normally, when parents die, their money goes to their children. Rob had 4 children, Tracy and Jake and Nick and Romy. If they split the money equally, each child would get $50 million. That is a life-changing amount of money. But Nick is charged with murder. This changes everything. There is a law in California called the Slayer Rule. This law is very simple. You cannot inherit money from someone you killed. The law says that a person who feloniously and intentionally kills their parents is not allowed to get any of their property or life insurance or money. Basically, the law treats the killer as if they died before the victims. They get nothing. If Nick is found guilty of murdering his parents, he will lose his share of the fortune. He will not get a single penny of the $200 million. Instead, his share will likely be split among his siblings. This means Tracy and Jake and Romy would share the whole estate. There is one way Nick might still try to get money. If his lawyers argue that he was insane at the time of the murder, they might say he did not intentionally kill them. If a court decides he was not guilty by reason of insanity, the Slayer Rule might be challenged. However, this is very hard to do. In civil courts where money matters are decided, the standard of proof is lower than in criminal courts. Even if he avoids prison and goes to a mental hospital, a judge could still rule that he caused their deaths and cannot profit from it. The family would likely fight very hard to make sure he does not inherit the money he made available by killing them. The other 3 children are now left with a heavy burden. Tracy Reiner is 61 years old. Rob adopted her when he was married to her mother, Penny Marshall. Penny Marshall was also a famous director who made the movie Big. Tracy is the oldest and has her own family. She was shocked by the death and said she had just seen her dad the day before. She said she came from the greatest family ever. Jake Reiner is 34 years old. He is considered the steady hand of the family. He worked as a journalist and is now an actor. He has been taking care of the sad duties like receiving his parents' remains after the autopsy. He released a statement saying his parents were his best friends. Romy Reiner is 28 years old. She is the one who found the bodies. She is traumatized and deeply hurt. She was the one who warned the family about Nick's behavior. She has to live with the memory of that terrible Sunday forever. Rob Reiner spent his life making people happy. He built a $200 million fortune through hard work and brilliant creativity. He gave the world Seinfeld and The Princess Bride and Stand By Me. But in the end, all the money in the world could not save his family from tragedy. The mansion in Brentwood, bought with Hollywood success, became a house of horrors. Now his children are left to cry for the parents they loved, while the brother who allegedly took them away sits in a jail cell. It is a legacy of laughter silenced by a final heartbreaking act.